Good morning, Gamecocks, and happy game day.
Welcome to SGTV's new show, Gamecock Gameday, where we lay down everything you need to know about Gamecock football.
Stay tuned to hear our thoughts about today's highly anticipated matchup, College Gameday in Columbia, and South Carolina's big win last weekend.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Gamecock Gameday. Thanks for sticking with us, Gamecocks. I'm Sebastian Godun.
And I'm Austin McConnell. Last Saturday, the South Carolina Gamecocks took their third straight win over the Kentucky Wildcats, 31-6.
South Carolina's impressive defense prevented the Wildcats from getting very far, keeping them to 0 touchdowns and just 2 field goals. The win was largely due to freshman starting quarterback Lenore Sellers and an opportunistic defense. Sellers threw 2 touchdown passes of 24 yards and 16 yards and completed 11 of 15 passes for 159 yards.
Kai Kroger received the Special Teams Player of the Week for his 5 punts with a 51.6-yard average. Nick Imanwuri led the impressive defense with a 24-yard pick six and a game-high 7 tackles, earning him SEC Defensive Player of the Week. That impressive defense led to some unimpressive rushing yards for Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, this game came down to our incredible defense so far. We had 2 interceptions in the game against Kentucky and in the game against Old Dominion for 4 on the season altogether. Negative 11 rushing yards for Kentucky in the third quarter. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this came down to defense. I think our offense was a little stronger in this game than Old Dominion, looking a little better. That's my thoughts on the defense there. Anything from you?
I loved our secondary, and we're going to talk about that later when we talk about the LSU game today. But our linebackers played phenomenal. Debo Williams had 6 total tackles for 2 tackles for loss. And then our edge rusher, Dylan Stewart, who's a freshman, phenomenal job, had a sack, 1 tackle for loss, didn't allow any of the quarterbacks for Kentucky to get out and make a play and make anything happen downfield.
Yeah, I mean, so far on the season, Stewart and Williams both doing really good. Williams with 10 solo tackles on the season. Stewart, 2.5 sacks on the season. And then also Kyle Kennard, also an edge, 3 forced fumbles on the season, 3.5 sacks on the season. I mean, that's just an incredible combo, no matter who's playing on the field. Nick Imanwuri also coming in clutch in the Kentucky game with an interception for one of those 2 interceptions in that game. Again, I think just great defense so far. I'm looking forward to what we're going to do this game and in the future. I think it's looking very promising.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out that although most Gamecock leading defense are upperclassmen, being juniors and seniors, guys like Debo, Imanwuri, and Bam Martin Scott, it's nice to have these guys like Dylan Stewart lay that foundation for the defense, and even guys like Lenore Sellers on offense lay that foundation, play very good ball on both sides of the ball, and lay that foundation for South Carolina. And that's a compliment to Shane Beamer and his coaching and recruiting.
Right, yeah. And moving on to offense from the Kentucky game and even the Old Dominion game, I mean, Sellers was, we saw him a little shaky in the first game. It was his first college game, first start. He's a redshirt freshman, didn't play last year except in the spring game. But against Kentucky, he definitely looked a lot more comfortable. And I think that's going to be good for the season. It looks like he's definitely settling into the college play. South Carolina is at the top of the SEC right now. I would like to see Robbie Ashford being played more in the future. I think when he came in that second quarter in Kentucky, I mean, he has a 100% completion rate for that 1 pass that he did. But I think Robbie Ashford, as Beamer has said in the past, he's experienced. He's started in the SEC, transferred from Auburn, and I think just having that variety of quarterbacks, knowing that we can trust him and trust his gameplay, I think we need to play him more, and I'd like to see him played, possibly against LSU or just again in the future in general.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, we saw Lenore's interview after his game against Old Dominion, where that was a way closer game than it needed to be for us Gamecock fans. But he was talking about the environment and how he's been waiting for this his entire career, his entire life, and it's a rowdy environment here at South Carolina, and he wants to put on a performance for us Gamecock fans, and he felt the pressure there. But again, I think a good week 2 road game was perfect for Lenore Sellers because that gave him the opportunity to calm down, find his own, and play Gamecock football. I mean, they had 252 total yards on offense, outgained the Wildcats, who had 183. So they were just moving the ball a lot better. Obviously, with the addition to the pick six, they had 24 points on offense, all thanks to Raheem Sanders getting a few touchdowns. even one drive having to score 3 separate times because of penalties and a bunch of different calls. So just it's great to see the ball getting in different hands, and would like to see more of that this weekend.
Yeah, I know against Old Dominion, a bunch of fans were kind of blaming our receivers. Sellers had a 43% completion rate against Old Dominion, and then that skyrocketed to 73% against Kentucky. So I think, as a whole, the offensive line seems to be getting a little better. Sellers is kicking in what he really can do for our team, and hopefully our offense continues to do well and get better, and those statistics keep going up for us.
Yeah, and going back to that defense, South Carolina really just shut down both quarterbacks that Kentucky used, Brock Vandegrift and Gavin Wimsatt. They had 44 total passing yards, and Brock Vandegrift had a 1.2 QBR. Not good if you're a UK fan. That was not a good sight to see. That's a compliment to Debo Williams. And Dylan Stewart getting those sacks, getting those tackles for loss. So great job there. Again, by the defense, just wanted to point that out. And like we mentioned, Sellers looking more comfortable at quarterback. So hopefully the offense will keep up with the defense.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to blame Kentucky's very weak, if I should say, offense for their performance at the last game. But I think it also takes our strong defense and is a testament to the strength of our defense so far for their performance. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we move on to today's game, we have to mention the special guest on campus, College Gameday. For the first time since 2014, the popular show is back on the South Carolina campus. The show will be hosted by Reese Davis, featuring Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit, Nick Saban, Desmond Howard, Pat McAfee, and Pete Thamel, with special guest Dawn Staley. The show will also include a performance from Darius Rucker, a notable alumni from South Carolina.
Yeah, Hootie and the Blowfish performed here just a couple weeks ago. That was really cool to see. Darius Rucker coming back, and like you mentioned, Dawn Staley, the greatest women's basketball coach of all time, of course, getting to be the guest picker. That's really cool. I was watching the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He was in Williams-Brice. He and Nick Saban were talking about how great of an environment it is. So they're very excited to be here, just as we're very excited to host them. And that's going to be a lot of fun, because I know a lot of fans are already lined up, or were lined up last night to see the show today.
Yes, I stopped by last night. Great attitude from the fans, and I'm really looking forward to the nation being able to see the incredibleness and the passion that our fans have for our football team and our athletics in general coming through this game day environment.
Yeah, you mentioned it being the first time in literally a decade, so all fans have been waiting for this. It's been a while since the Gamecocks have been consistently good, so to start 2-0 and bring a national televised program and have the whole college football world watching us for 3 hours before we kick off at 12 today is just awesome for South Carolina, and it's great for the locals and all the small businesses around too, for people who travel. It's really great for South Carolina student body as well. I saw record number of student ticket requests, over 20,000.
Right, yeah. I'm looking forward to this game being really rowdy and having an incredible environment.
Stay tuned after the break to catch our take on today's SEC matchup.
We have a few hours till kickoff at Williams-Brice Stadium, where the Gamecocks will take on number 16th ranked LSU. Let's take a look at how both teams played in their first 2 games of the season.
Yeah, what jumps off the page immediately at me here is the Old Dominion and the Nichols score. Both powerhouse SEC teams struggling against the, no offense guys, lesser dominant teams. 23-19, obviously we mentioned that earlier with the atrocious start to the season for South Carolina. LSU they had a big game out in Nevada against USC, the Trojans out in South Carolina, but this is the real USC. Score was 27-20. A lot of yards in that game. It was a big-time game on a Sunday night. LSU had their hands full early. And then, again, in week 2, I think, I'm not even sure what happened there. They just went to halftime. It was 23-14 at half, which is almost a Super Bowl win for Nichols, because they were just hanging in there with LSU, who just won the national championship a few years ago. Eventually, LSU pulls away to win 44-21, but turnovers haven't been a big issue for LSU this year. We're going to talk about that in a minute. South Carolina has had a couple. But both teams playing very similarly to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've seen both teams looking very similar. They both struggled against their lesser ranked opponents. Both, we did good against Kentucky. They also struggled against USC, which wasn't unexpected. Both quarterbacks from our team and LSU were both injured in the second quarter of this last game last week. So I'm looking forward to see if these injuries play out in this upcoming game today. If there are a lot of injuries, especially with the quarterbacks. Also, LSU's passing game has looked pretty good so far. I think I wouldn't put it past our defense to be able to stop that. Maybe we'll see a few interceptions here, but I think their passing game has been strong, and I think at least against Old Dominion, the passing we were pretty weak on stopping. So I think if our defense can continue what they did in Kentucky and stop the passing, stop the rushing, which LSU seems to be very strong on, I think we're going to be good.
Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU starting quarterback, who you mentioned had a minor injury. We'll see how that affects him this week, but he has a 75% completion percentage to start the season and over 610 passing yards. He is doing phenomenally, and he is finding his targets downfield. He is not afraid to air the ball out. He's the junior quarterback from Lake Charles, Louisiana, so he's staying in state to go with LSU. He's a leader. He's a leader, but we'll see how his on-field play is affected by that injury. Not sure how severe or how truly minor it was. Obviously, they're not going to give us every detail. Right. They want to give us an advantage, but obviously you mentioned it, Lenore Sellers having that same injury last week. But we have faith in Robbie Asher.
Yeah, and I think if this does come down to injuries, we, like Austin just said, we have a lot of faith in Robbie Ashford. I don't know much about any backup quarterbacks for LSU, but with Robbie Ashford's experience in the SEC starting there and just his performance so far from last game, I think that he would be a trustworthy secondary, and I think he can continue to get us through this game if it does come down to injuries.
Yeah, LSU's riding with that junior quarterback in state, so I doubt they've really thought about their backup quarterback as well, because they're waiting for Garrett to take him to a good bowl game, a good year. Obviously, dropping that one against USC is not something Brian Kelly wanted. You saw how mad he was in that press conference after the game. But they're looking to turn the tide here, right the ship, and come into a very rowdy South Carolina this weekend with College Gameday. They're no strangers to game day. They're no stranger to rowdy environments. They play in Death Valley in Louisiana State. And it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a great matchup.
Yeah, this is technically their first official road game of the season, so I think we have that against them. I'm biased, but I think Williams-Brice is a very underrated experience for traveling teams and visiting teams to play in, and I think it's going to help us. I think we're going to do great in this game. With that, we're winding down to the end of our show, but before we go, here's our predictions for today's game.
I want to see Carolina force LSU to run the ball. I think this could be a very defensive game. It's going to be very low scoring in both the first and second half. That's why I have it at 21-20 in favor of the good guys here. Nussmeier having 610 passing yards, so defensive backs and our secondary need to really, really lock down and make sure there's no deep third down conversions for LSU. Make sure nothing gets past them. Keep everyone in front of them. And just play good zone or man coverage. I think either one could work as long as they stay with LSU. The problem with LSU's run game is it could be good. It hasn't been good yet, but their offensive line are one of the best in the country. They are big. This is the best O-line South Carolina is going to face to start the season. Obviously, they plowed through Kentucky's offensive line last week, and LSU's a lot more sizable, a lot bigger. It's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But I think if it comes down to a defensive stand, I trust South Carolina's defense to make the stands necessary. I've got 21-20 Gamecocks.
Yeah, I chose USC 21-17. I also think this is going to be a very close game. These teams are very similar. We have the great defense. They also have a great defense. And I think where both of us struggle is our offense. And I'm very looking forward to seeing our offense again this week and seeing if they are truly getting better or if last week was just an incredible performance. But, again, like I said, these teams are very similar. I think this is going to be a very low-scoring game. It'll come down to one touchdown, one field goal, something like that. If our offensive linemen can give Lenore some time to find a receiver, I'd love to see more passes from us and hopefully actually catching from our receivers. Yeah, I mean, this would be our first win against LSU since 1994. So 30 years. It's a long time, but I think we can pull it off, and that's why I had USC winning 21-17.
Yeah, this has the chance to be a very historic weekend. It's going to be a great game. And that's going to wrap it up for our show today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Gamecock Game Day. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm Sebastian Godun.
And I'm Austin McConnell. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great game day, Carolina. Forever to you.